Meghan Markle just dropped a bombshell. Lilibet was born via surrogate, and she lied to the palace about it. What does this mean for the royal family? In a shocking confession, Meghan admits to keeping the truth about Lilibet's birth a secret from the palace, saying it was to avoid media scrutiny. But her apology only raises more questions. Could this breach of trust have lasting consequences for the royal family's legitimacy? From royal lineage to public perception, this revelation could change everything. Stay tuned as we dive into what Meghan's bombshell really means for the future of the monarchy. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world of the British royal family is often shrouded in mystery, tradition, and, at times, scandal. For decades, the monarchy has been the subject of intense media scrutiny, with every action, every word, and every family decision coming under the microscope. But few stories have captivated the public quite like the saga of Meghan Markle and her place within the royal fold. From the moment Meghan married Prince Harry, the world's attention turned to this modern, outspoken American woman who had suddenly become part of one of the most iconic families in history. Her charm, her advocacy for various causes, and her celebrity status made her a figure both adored and criticized. But behind the glossy headlines and royal engagements, a much deeper and more personal story was unfolding. And now, in a move that has sent shockwaves through both the royal family and the media, Meghan has made a shocking revelation that will change everything we thought we knew about her family, and potentially, the royal family's future. Meghan Markle has just confessed a truth that many speculated about but few truly believed. She and Prince Harry used a surrogate for the birth of their daughter, Lilibet, and, more controversially, they lied to the palace about it. Meghan admits, "I'm sorry I lied." She goes on to explain that the decision was made to protect her family from media scrutiny and that she felt the need to keep it a secret to avoid judgment. The admission is nothing short of explosive. The royal family, a centuries-old institution built on tradition, has always been incredibly guarded about matters of lineage, inheritance, and family protocol. For Meghan to admit that she lied to the palace about such a personal matter is a breach of trust that many would say challenges the very foundation of the monarchy. The implications of her revelation go far beyond personal betrayal. They touch on the legitimacy of royal lineage and the integrity of the royal family itself. At the core of this controversy is the question, why lie to the palace in the first place? For Meghan, it was a decision made in the face of an overwhelming media onslaught. As the first biracial woman to marry into the royal family, Meghan had already faced an unimaginable amount of public scrutiny, racism, and invasive attention. It's no secret that her relationship with the press has been fraught with tension and distrust. From the very beginning of her relationship with Harry, the media had been relentless in its pursuit of scandal, gossip, and sensational stories. The British tabloids targeted Meghan mercilessly, dissecting every aspect of her personal life, from her family history to her every move as a royal. Given this, it's not hard to understand why Meghan would want to protect her family from the constant barrage of negativity. Yet, her decision to keep the surrogate birth a secret is undeniably controversial. The royal family has always valued transparency when it comes to issues of succession and family matters. The idea of a royal child being born via surrogate, particularly in a modern era when royal lineage and birthright are of such great importance, challenges the traditional narrative of the monarchy. For Meghan to confess that she lied to the palace about the surrogate raises difficult questions about the secrecy that has been employed by the couple and what this means for the royal family's future. As Meghan opens up about this secret, she admits that the pressure of public opinion weighed heavily on her decision-making process. The media, she explains, have been relentless in their criticism of her from the start of her relationship with Harry. And the thought of enduring yet another round of invasive headlines about her pregnancy and the birth of Lilibet was something she couldn't bear. For Meghan, the idea of using a surrogate was not about hiding her child's birth from the world. It was about protecting her family's privacy in a world where everything was up for public consumption. But by lying to the palace about it, Meghan now finds herself at the center of an even larger controversy. While the world now knows the truth about Lilibet's birth, the real question is how this will affect Meghan and Harry's standing within the royal family. The monarchy, an institution steeped in tradition and centuries of history, has long relied on its sense of unity and public trust. If Meghan's actions, the lie, the secrecy, and the breaking of royal protocols, are seen as a betrayal of that trust, it could have far-reaching consequences. What does it mean for the legitimacy of their children, especially Lilibet, who is a direct descendant of the royal family. Is the use of a surrogate in this context something that should be tolerated, or does it undermine the monarchy's reputation and traditions? The stakes are high. Meghan's actions, whether seen as a personal choice motivated by the desire for privacy or a blatant disregard for royal protocols, have placed her and Harry in a precarious position within the family. This is not just a matter of personal privacy anymore. It's a matter of public perception, royal legitimacy, and the ongoing debate about what it means to be a part of the British monarchy in the modern era. The monarchy has long been a symbol of continuity and tradition, and with Meghan's admission, those long-standing traditions are being questioned like never before. Moreover, this revelation has sparked a fierce debate about the role of women in the royal family, particularly when it comes to motherhood and reproductive choices. Meghan has been a vocal advocate for women's rights, championing causes related to gender equality, mental health, and family welfare. Yet, her decision to use a surrogate and then keep it secret raises questions about how the royal family, as an institution, views motherhood and the role of women in the family. Does the monarchy see motherhood as a personal choice, or is it a public duty? And if Meghan can't be open about the choices she made to protect her family, what does that say about the royal family's treatment of women and their autonomy? For the British public, the news of Meghan's surrogate birth will not come as a total surprise. Speculation about Lilibet's birth had circulated since her arrival in 2021, with many wondering whether Meghan had used a surrogate to avoid the same scrutiny she had faced during her pregnancy with Archie. The royal couple's decision to keep Lilibet's birth a secret, and now, Meghan's admission that they lied to the palace about it, is an unsettling moment for those who have followed their journey. But it's also a moment of reckoning for the royal family, as it grapples with how to move forward in an age where tradition is increasingly being questioned, and royal life is no longer a private matter. Meghan's apology for the lie is another point of contention. In her confession, she expresses remorse for not being open with the palace, but she also justifies her actions by explaining the pressure she faced from both the media and the royal family. The tension between her desire for privacy and her duty to the institution is palpable, and her words will no doubt fuel the ongoing debate about whether Meghan's actions were justified or reckless. For those who have long criticized Meghan's decision to step away from royal life, her apology may not be enough to undo the damage done. But for others, it may be seen as a brave step in acknowledging the complexity of her situation and the heavy emotional toll it has taken on her and her family. In the coming weeks, the implications of Meghan's revelation will unfold further, and the world will be watching closely to see how the royal family reacts. Will they continue to distance themselves from Meghan and Harry, or will they take a more understanding approach to their actions? And what does this mean for the future of the monarchy? One thing is certain, Meghan's confession has altered the trajectory of her relationship with the royal family, and it may well have a lasting impact on the institution itself. Meghan Markle's confession about using a surrogate for the birth of her daughter, Lilibet, is shocking in its own right, but it is her admission that she lied to the palace about it that raises even more questions about her relationship with the royal family. The decision to keep Lilibet's birth secret from the royal family was not just a matter of privacy. It was a deliberate act of deception, one that directly contravenes the expectations of transparency and trust that the monarchy relies upon. When Meghan and Harry first stepped away from their royal duties, many of their decisions were scrutinized by the public and the press. Their decision to live in the United States, their Netflix and Spotify deals, and their outspoken views on issues such as mental health and racial justice have all generated intense media coverage. Yet, one of the most significant aspects of their departure was the desire for privacy for themselves and for their children. Meghan, in particular, was determined to protect her family from the intense media scrutiny that had plagued her throughout her time in the royal spotlight. And while her desire for privacy is understandable given the unrelenting pressure she faced, her decision to lie about the birth of Lilibet raises serious ethical concerns. The decision to use a surrogate is, in itself, a deeply personal one, and Meghan has every right to choose how she wants to grow her family. However, the secrecy surrounding the birth and the lie to the palace introduce a host of complications. The royal family has always valued transparency, particularly when it comes to matters of succession and royal lineage. When a member of the royal family gives birth, it is not only a personal event but also a public one, with the birth often being followed by official statements, photo calls, and media coverage. In Meghan's case, the decision to use a surrogate was a deeply private matter, But the subsequent lie to the palace and the world complicates this personal decision. Meghan admits in her confession that the decision to keep the surrogacy a secret was motivated by a desire to avoid media scrutiny. After all, she and Harry had already experienced the toxic relationship with the media that followed them throughout their time in the royal family. The media's invasive coverage of Meghan's pregnancy with Archie, the negative press surrounding her, and the constant criticism of her every move had undoubtedly taken a toll on her. It is not surprising, then, that she would want to shield her family from further media invasion. But the question remains, was this lie truly justified? And was it worth the cost of the trust that was breached with the palace? At its core, the lie to the palace is an issue of trust. The monarchy has always been an institution built on loyalty and the understanding that its members work together for the greater good of the nation. When Harry and Meghan chose to step away from their royal duties, they still maintained a connection to the family, albeit a more distant one. By lying about the surrogacy, Meghan effectively undermined the very foundation of that connection. The royal family relies on open communication and trust, and by withholding such a significant detail, Meghan violated that trust. For those within the palace who may have been aware of the surrogate birth, the decision to lie about it could be seen as a betrayal of the royal family's values. Members of the royal family are expected to uphold certain standards of decorum and transparency, especially when it comes to matters of public interest. Meghan's actions, while perhaps understandable from a personal perspective, undermine the sense of unity and respect that the monarchy has carefully cultivated for centuries. What makes the situation even more complicated is that Meghan's relationship with the palace had already been strained. Her and Harry's decision to step back as senior royals had left a mark on their relationship with the rest of the family, and this new revelation only deepens that rift. But what about the impact on Harry? Throughout the entirety of their journey, Harry has stood by Meghan's side, advocating for her and defending her against the media's unrelenting criticism. Their relationship, from the beginning, was framed as one of mutual support and love, with Harry committed to protecting Meghan and their family. However, as Meghan admits to lying to the palace, Harry's role in this decision becomes a point of contention. Was Harry aware of the decision to keep Lilibet's birth a secret? And if so, did he condone it? Did he play a part in the deception? Or was this something Meghan decided on her own? In the public eye, Harry's image has been built around the narrative of him as a protector of his family. He has spoken often about his desire to protect Meghan from the same kind of press treatment that plagued his mother, Princess Diana. But this new revelation raises questions about his role in the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth. Was he complicit in lying to the palace, or was he unaware of the full extent of Meghan's decision? The truth is still unclear, but this question hangs over their relationship, as it raises further doubts about the couple's actions and intentions. As the news of Meghan's admission spreads, there is also the issue of how this lie affects their relationship with the British public. Meghan and Harry's relationship with the media has always been contentious, with both of them frequently accusing the press of bias, racism, and an invasive obsession with their personal lives. Their decision to keep Lilibet's birth a secret may be seen by some as an attempt to protect their children from the same media scrutiny they endured. However, for others, it is seen as a betrayal of the public trust, especially when it involves the royal family, an institution that has always been open about matters of succession and lineage. Meghan's admission may have been intended as a way of coming clean, but the fallout from this lie could have long-lasting consequences. The royal family, which has always been seen as a pillar of stability and tradition, now finds itself in a new era where transparency and secrecy are at odds. With the increasing media coverage of the royal family's personal lives and the changing expectations from the public, Meghan's decision to hide such a significant truth casts a shadow over the monarchy's future. How can the royal family maintain the trust of the British people and the world if its own members are willing to lie to protect their privacy? The revelations about Meghan's actions place the monarchy in an uncomfortable position, where the very foundation of its traditional values, trust, openness, and unity, is being tested. In the aftermath of Meghan's admission, many are left to wonder what the future holds for her, Harry, and their children. The monarchy is no stranger to scandals and controversies, but Meghan's decision to lie about such an intimate and personal matter adds a new layer of complexity to the family's public image. Will Meghan and Harry continue to be embraced by the British public, Or will their actions further distance them from the royal family and the people who once supported them? Only time will tell whether this lie will have lasting repercussions on their relationship with the monarchy and their place in royal history. When the truth about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's use of a surrogate for the birth of their daughter, Lilibet, came to light, it wasn't just a personal revelation, it was a scandal that threatened to undermine the royal family's image, especially as it pertained to transparency, trust, and the deep-rooted traditions that have sustained the monarchy for centuries. The royal family, an institution built on duty, loyalty, and respect for its traditions, now found itself at the crossroads of personal privacy and public expectation. Meghan's admission that she had lied to the palace about Lilibet's birth was a betrayal of the royal family's most sacred principles: trust, unity, and the understanding that even the most personal matters should align with the public's perception of the monarchy. From the very start of their relationship, Meghan and Harry's connection with the British royal family has been fraught with tension. Their marriage, while initially celebrated as a modern royal union, quickly became a lightning rod for controversy. Meghan, an American actress with a history in the entertainment industry, was seen by many as an outsider, someone who did not conform to the royal family's rigid structure. Her outspoken views on politics, race, gender equality, and the press quickly alienated her from certain factions within the royal family, while also making her a target of the British tabloids, whose coverage of her was often ruthless and deeply personal. But as the couple announced their decision to step back from royal duties in 2020, the tension between them and the royal family reached its breaking point. The couple's departure from their royal roles, which was initially framed as a bid for privacy and a desire to carve out their own path, set the stage for an even more complex and difficult relationship with the palace. Meghan's increasing desire for privacy, alongside her decision to raise her family away from the spotlight of royal life, clashed with the royal family's duty to maintain its public image and adhere to long-standing traditions. This conflict, at its core, was about more than just a disagreement between Meghan and the palace. It was about two fundamentally different approaches to life and duty. Meghan and Harry's decision to keep the birth of Lilibet a secret from the palace, and their subsequent lie about using a surrogate, only exacerbated the rift between them and the royal family. From the outside looking in, it was clear that Meghan's actions represented a breach of the royal family's expectations. The monarchy has long prided itself on being open with the public, especially when it comes to matters of succession and lineage. Royal births have historically been public events, celebrated with fanfare and pride. The idea that Meghan and Harry would hide such a significant aspect of their family story was seen as a challenge to the very fabric of the institution. For Prince Charles, this was particularly difficult. As the future king, he was responsible not only for carrying on the monarchy's legacy but also for ensuring that the public trusted the royal family to uphold its traditions. He had spent years walking a fine line between embracing the modern world and honoring the institution's long-standing customs. But Meghan's decision to keep Lilibet's birth a secret, and her lie to the palace about it, put him in an uncomfortable position. On the one hand, Charles was deeply protective of his son, Harry, and had always defended his right to live his life as he saw fit. On the other hand, the breach of trust caused by Meghan's actions could not be ignored. As the head of the royal family, Charles had a duty to ensure the integrity of the monarchy was preserved, and Meghan's actions seemed to jeopardize that very integrity. The Queen, too, had to contend with the fallout from Meghan's confession. As the longest-reigning monarch in British history, Queen Elizabeth II had always prioritized the stability and unity of the royal family. Throughout her reign, she had faced numerous challenges, from political scandals to personal betrayals. But the idea that a member of the royal family would deliberately lie about something as significant as the birth of a royal child was unprecedented. For the Queen, the issue wasn't just about Meghan's actions. It was about the future of the monarchy itself. What message would it send to the public if the royals were seen as deceitful, especially on such a crucial matter as the legitimacy of royal lineage? Royal insiders reported that the Queen's response to Meghan's admission was one of quiet disappointment. She had long hoped for a resolution to the rift between Harry and the royal family, but this new revelation about Lilibet's birth added yet another layer of complexity to their already strained relationship. The Queen, always the figurehead of stability, was faced with the uncomfortable reality that Meghan and Harry's departure from royal life and their subsequent actions were creating a divide within the family that seemed impossible to bridge. Prince William, too, was deeply affected by the revelation. As the future king, William had always been seen as the embodiment of royal duty and tradition. His relationship with Harry had been publicly strained for years, and the admission that Meghan had lied to the palace only deepened the rift between the brothers. William, who had always been fiercely protective of the royal family and its traditions, found it difficult to reconcile his loyalty to the monarchy with his love for his brother. The birth of Lilibet and the secrecy surrounding it forced William to confront the uncomfortable truth that Meghan and Harry were increasingly distancing themselves from the family and the institution they represented. The palace's public response to the lie was one of muted silence. As with many royal scandals, the official statements were carefully worded to avoid direct confrontation or condemnation. A palace spokesperson issued a statement expressing regret over the situation, but also emphasized that the royal family would continue to focus on their work and duties. However, the underlying tension was palpable. The royal family was grappling with the reality that the trust between them and Meghan had been irrevocably damaged. While they did not want to escalate the issue publicly, it was clear that Meghan's actions had placed them in an untenable position. For Meghan and Harry, the fallout from their actions was just as significant. While the couple had long been open about their desire for privacy and their frustration with the media's intrusion into their personal lives, this new lie was seen as a step too far by many of their supporters and critics alike. The public had always been willing to empathize with Meghan and Harry, understanding their desire for a more peaceful life outside the royal spotlight. However, their decision to keep such a significant secret about Lilibet's birth raised questions about their honesty and integrity. It was no longer just about their desire for privacy. It was about their willingness to deceive the very family that had once been their support system. As the public grappled with the revelations, many began to wonder about the long-term consequences for the royal family. Could the monarchy survive this level of deception? Or would Meghan and Harry's actions ultimately lead to further disillusionment with the institution? The relationship between the royal family and the British public was already fragile, and this new scandal threatened to break the fragile bond that had been carefully cultivated over generations. When Meghan Markle's admission about using a surrogate for the birth of her daughter, Lilibet, and lying to the palace was revealed, the media response was swift, intense, and relentless. The press, always eager to capitalize on royal stories, quickly turned this revelation into a full-blown frenzy, with tabloids, news outlets, and social media platforms all clamoring for attention. The story was not just about a royal admission, it became a cultural moment, with public opinion divided along predictable lines. Some felt Meghan's actions were justified, given the intense media scrutiny she had faced since marrying Prince Harry, while others saw it as a betrayal of royal duty and an outright breach of trust. The media coverage of the story was, unsurprisingly, polarized. For those who had supported Meghan and Harry in their decision to step back from royal duties, this new revelation was seen as a natural extension of their desire for privacy. Meghan's supporters argued that the decision to use a surrogate was deeply personal, and that her lie to the palace was simply a means of protecting her family from the intense and invasive press coverage that had characterized their time as working royals. The couple had been subjected to constant scrutiny, often negative, and many felt that Meghan's actions were an understandable response to that pressure. After all, the British media had been harsh toward Meghan from the beginning, with racist undertones in their coverage of her and an obsession with digging into her private life. However, the media's reaction to Meghan's admission wasn't just a matter of public sympathy or outrage. It was also about maintaining a narrative. The British tabloids, in particular, have built their empire on covering the royal family, often focusing on the scandalous, the personal, and the controversial. Meghan Markle, as the first biracial woman to marry into the royal family, was always going to be a target for the press, but her decisions, especially her departure from royal life, allowed them to frame her as an outsider, someone who didn't fit the traditional mold of the monarchy. With every move Meghan and Harry made, the media painted them as rebels against the royal family, something that both fascinated and enraged the public. The surrogate revelation and the admission of deceit were seen by the media as the latest chapter in the ongoing drama of Meghan and Harry's royal exit. Tabloid newspapers seized on the narrative of Meghan lying to the palace, with headlines like, "Royal Deception. Meghan admits to lying about Lilibet's birth and the truth behind the royal baby bombshell." These stories were immediately shared across social media, with Twitter and Instagram filled with heated debates over whether Meghan was justified in keeping the secret or whether her actions were a breach of royal trust. The sheer speed with which the media picked up the story highlighted the insatiable appetite for royal gossip and the lengths to which outlets would go to keep the narrative alive. The British press, in particular, was quick to condemn Meghan. The Daily Mail, The Sun, and other tabloids, which had often criticized her and painted her as an unwelcome addition to the royal family, jumped at the chance to report on the lie. The focus shifted from the fact that Meghan and Harry were merely trying to protect their privacy to an examination of whether this secrecy had harmed the monarchy itself. The issue was no longer just about Meghan's personal choices. It became a question of royal tradition, lineage, and what it meant to be a member of the royal family. Meghan's decision to use a surrogate was framed as a deviation from royal norms, and the subsequent lie about it was painted as a deliberate attempt to deceive the institution that had given her the title of Duchess of Sussex. But even as the tabloids were quick to condemn, other media outlets, particularly those sympathetic to Meghan, began to question the ethics of such harsh treatment. Pundits and commentators in the U.S. and elsewhere pointed out that Meghan's decision to use a surrogate was, in many ways, a personal and modern choice. In the face of immense pressure and media scrutiny, choosing to protect her family by keeping certain aspects of her children's birth private was not necessarily a betrayal. It was an act of self-preservation. Meghan's supporters rallied behind her, urging the public to understand the context of her decisions and to stop vilifying her for seeking some semblance of normalcy in a life that had been anything but ordinary. Social media played a massive role in amplifying both the support and criticism of Meghan's actions. Twitter became a battleground, with some royal watchers demanding that Meghan be stripped of her title and that the monarchy take stronger action against her actions, while others defended her right to control her family's narrative. On Instagram, a more sympathetic narrative emerged, with many commenting on how the press had failed to protect Meghan during her time as a royal and how her actions now reflected a deep-seated desire for privacy and peace. For Meghan, this media frenzy was nothing new. Throughout her time as a working royal, the media had scrutinized every aspect of her life. The relentless press coverage, particularly from the British tabloids, had been harsh and invasive, often focusing on Meghan's personal background, her relationship with her family, and her perceived clash with royal protocol. From the moment Meghan and Harry announced their engagement, the press treated them like objects of fascination, dissecting every move and decision they made. The paparazzi frenzy surrounding Meghan's pregnancy with Archie was perhaps one of the most intense periods of scrutiny, with constant speculation about the details of her pregnancy and the identity of her child's father. When Meghan and Harry announced their decision to step back from royal duties in January 2020, the media's reaction was swift and divisive. While many supported their desire for autonomy, others saw it as a betrayal of the monarchy and a rejection of royal duty. The media's portrayal of Meghan and Harry as rebels only intensified after their move to the U.S., where they sought to build a new life free from the pressures of royal life. The couple's public statements, including their well-publicized interviews and charity work, painted them as modern, progressive figures who sought to break free from the stifling constraints of royal tradition. But with the latest revelation about Lilibet's birth, the media once again saw an opportunity to fuel the narrative of Meghan and Harry as outsiders, people who were not playing by the rules and who were willing to deceive the royal family to get their way. The media's relentless pursuit of this story was not just about the lie. It was about maintaining control over the royal narrative. For years, the British press had crafted a story about Meghan as a disruptive force in the royal family, and the surrogacy revelation and her admission of deceit played right into that narrative. The media framed the story not as one about a mother trying to protect her child's privacy, but as an example of the royal family's fragile trust being shattered. As the media continued to dissect every aspect of the revelation, the impact on Meghan and Harry's relationship with the public grew more complicated. The press, which had already created a divided narrative around Meghan's royal exit, now had an even more sensational story to latch onto. This was no longer just about Meghan and Harry's relationship with the royal family. It was about their relationship with the public at large. The media's ability to shape public opinion became even more evident as pundits weighed in on the potential long-term effects of Meghan's actions. In the end, the media frenzy surrounding Meghan's admission about the surrogate birth was both a testament to the public's insatiable interest in the royal family and a reflection of how the media could manipulate narratives to fit a desired agenda. Whether Meghan's actions were justified or reckless was beside the point. What mattered was how the media framed her story, and how the public, fed by those narratives, responded. For Meghan and Harry, the consequences of their actions would continue to play out in the court of public opinion, where the line between privacy and transparency is ever more blurred. The decision to keep the birth of Lilibet a secret from the royal family and the public was undoubtedly a difficult one for Meghan Markle. As the wife of Prince Harry, a member of the British royal family, Meghan knew that the birth of their child, particularly their second child, would be a significant event, one that would attract immense media attention. But as the press coverage of her first pregnancy with Archie had demonstrated, the public's interest in her family went far beyond curiosity. It was invasive, often disrespectful, and at times, outright hostile. Meghan's relationship with the media had always been contentious, and it seemed that no matter what she did, she could not escape the constant scrutiny. So, when it came to Lilibet's birth, Meghan made a decision. She would protect her family, at all costs, from the intense media attention that had plagued them throughout their time in the royal spotlight. The surrogacy, as Meghan admitted, was part of a carefully planned decision to shield her family from further judgment and invasive press coverage. But as she now admits, the secrecy came at a high price, one that has caused significant turmoil for her and Harry, as well as for the royal family. Meghan's reasoning for keeping Lilibet's birth a secret was rooted in her overwhelming desire for privacy and control over her family's narrative. Having experienced firsthand the often brutal press treatment and the intense public scrutiny, Meghan knew that her family would never be able to live a normal life under the constant gaze of the media. Her pregnancy with Archie had been subjected to relentless tabloid speculation, with everything from her body to her birth plan being scrutinized. Her experiences during her first pregnancy, marked by racist and misogynistic coverage, left Meghan deeply disillusioned with the British press and, to some extent, the royal family's inability to protect her from it. As the Duchess of Sussex, she had been expected to uphold royal duties and adhere to tradition, but at what cost? Meghan's words in her confession about lying to the palace reveal the internal conflict she faced. On the one hand, she knew that the royal family, as an institution built on centuries of tradition and duty, would expect full transparency, especially when it came to matters of lineage and family. But on the other hand, Meghan had already faced years of intense public scrutiny and personal attacks. The idea of enduring another round of media frenzy, particularly surrounding the birth of her second child, was too much to bear. Meghan's desire for privacy and her decision to control the narrative surrounding her family's birth story was in many ways a survival mechanism. In her mind, the media would never leave her alone, so she made the decision to take matters into her own hands. However, the decision to keep Lilibet's birth a secret from the royal family, especially from the palace, was one that was bound to backfire. As Meghan admits, the secrecy was never meant to cause harm. It was simply a way to avoid further emotional and physical tolls from the press. But by hiding such a significant part of her family's story from the very institution that she had been a part of, Meghan inadvertently created a rift. The royal family, an institution built on transparency, trust, and duty, could not fully embrace this decision, especially when it went against the grain of the royal family's commitment to public engagement. Meghan's reasoning also highlights the deep tension between her own sense of self-preservation and her role as a member of the royal family. Throughout her time as a working royal, Meghan had often spoken about the pressures of living in the public eye. The royal family, as a public institution, is often expected to put duty before personal desires, but for Meghan, this presented a conflict that she could not reconcile. Her desire for autonomy, for the ability to protect her family and carve out a sense of normalcy, clashed with the expectations placed on her as a royal. Meghan's decision to go against these expectations was, at least in her eyes, an act of self-preservation, one that she believed was necessary to maintain her family's well-being. The secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth also ties into Meghan's larger feelings of isolation and disillusionment with royal life. From the moment she married Harry, Meghan was thrust into a world of expectations, traditions, and constraints. The intense media attention, combined with the expectations placed upon her by the royal family, left Meghan feeling like a prisoner in her own life. The public scrutiny, particularly from the British tabloids, often felt like an endless cycle of judgment and criticism. It wasn't just about her actions, it was about her very existence within the royal family. Meghan felt that no matter what she did, she would never be able to escape the intense judgment from the public, and she began to question whether it was worth it to continue to live under such intense scrutiny. The birth of Lilibet was, for Meghan, the final straw. She had already endured the public's invasive questions and judgments during her pregnancy with Archie, and now, with her second child, she refused to put herself and her family through the same emotional toll again. The secrecy around Lilibet's birth was her way of taking control. In her mind, it was a way to protect her child, to ensure that the public would not intrude on what should have been a private and joyous occasion. Meghan had already been forced to navigate a world that seemed bent on tearing her apart, and the last thing she wanted was to have her second child subjected to the same kind of press treatment. However, Meghan now admits that the secrecy surrounding the birth of Lilibet was a decision that came with consequences. The backlash from the palace and the public has been significant, and Meghan has expressed remorse for lying to the palace. In her confession, she acknowledges the breach of trust that her actions have caused and admits that the secrecy was a mistake. For Meghan, this is a turning point. It is a moment of reflection and self-awareness, where she realizes that her actions, while motivated by a desire to protect her family, have had far-reaching consequences. Despite her apology, Meghan's reasoning for the secrecy remains grounded in the belief that she was acting in the best interests of her family. She does not back down from the idea that the media's treatment of her family has been abusive and that her actions were a direct response to that abuse. Meghan has long been outspoken about the negative impact of the media on her mental health, and her decision to shield Lilibet from that same scrutiny reflects her ongoing commitment to protecting her family from harm. For Meghan, the breach of trust with the palace was a cost that had to be paid in order to protect her family's peace. The long-term ramifications of this decision remain to be seen, but Meghan's reasoning for the secrecy provides valuable insight into the pressures and emotional toll that she and Harry have faced over the years. It also raises larger questions about the role of privacy in the royal family and whether the modern era of intense media coverage can ever truly reconcile with the traditions of the past. Meghan's actions highlight the tension between personal desire and public duty, a tension that has become increasingly difficult to navigate in a world where every royal action is subjected to scrutiny. In the end, Meghan's reasoning for the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth is a reminder of the emotional toll that being a member of the royal family can take, and the difficult decisions that are made in an attempt to protect one's family from the relentless glare of the public eye. The royal family, as an institution, has always been deeply rooted in the principles of legitimacy, tradition, and public perception. Every royal birth is a matter of immense importance, not just because of the joy it brings, but because it carries significant implications for the future of the monarchy itself. The British royal family has long maintained strict rules about lineage, inheritance, and royal succession, which are tied directly to bloodlines and the acceptance of public scrutiny. But Meghan Markle's admission that she used a surrogate to give birth to her second child, Lilibet, and her subsequent confession that she lied to the palace about it, has thrown these age-old expectations into disarray. The question of legitimacy of both Lilibet's birth and her place in the royal family now looms large. The monarchy has been built upon a strict framework of lineage and succession. In the past, royal births were occasions for celebration and public announcement, with the birth of a child marking the continuation of the family line. This has historically been tied to the public perception of the monarchy as an institution that is governed by a set of rules, one of which is that royal heirs must be born to the rightful heirs, a direct biological connection. This tradition, while rooted in history, has been a cornerstone of the royal family's image and legitimacy for centuries. The birth of a royal child was never just a personal event for the royal family. It was a moment that symbolized the continuity of the monarchy itself. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's first child, Archie, was born in 2019, the media and public attention were already intense. But it was the birth of Lilibet in 2021 that became a particularly controversial subject, especially given the secrecy surrounding her birth. Meghan's decision to use a surrogate and keep the details of the birth from the palace, along with her admission of lying to the royal family, has cast a shadow over the legitimacy of Lilibet's place in the royal family. The royal family, which has long adhered to the traditional framework of bloodlines and succession, is now faced with a difficult question. Does Lilibet's birth, through surrogacy, challenge the established norms of royal lineage? The British royal family, like most monarchies, places significant emphasis on the legitimacy of royal heirs. This is not just a matter of protocol. It is a matter of public perception and national identity. Royal legitimacy is a delicate balance between biological inheritance and the public's acceptance of that inheritance. The monarchy has long been perceived as a symbol of continuity, and for that continuity to remain intact, the public must believe that the line of succession is unbroken and unquestioned. Any deviation from the traditional understanding of royal birth, whether through surrogacy, adoption, or any other means, could be seen as undermining the very foundations of the monarchy. For many royal experts, the admission that Meghan and Harry used a surrogate to have Lilibet raises legitimate concerns about the future of royal succession. The British public, which has always held the monarchy in high regard, is now faced with a situation where a royal child's birth has been shrouded in secrecy and deception. The idea that a member of the royal family could use a surrogate without the palace's knowledge challenges long-established protocols. While surrogacy is becoming increasingly common in many parts of the world, it has never been a part of royal tradition, and its introduction into the royal family creates a tension between modernity and tradition. The question of Lilibet's legitimacy is particularly complicated by the fact that the royal family has always been deeply tied to ideas of bloodlines and inheritance. In the past, royal heirs were expected to be born naturally, and any deviation from this norm could have been viewed as scandalous. This is especially true in the British royal family, where the line of succession is meticulously guarded and controlled. The royal family's relationship with the public is built on the assumption that the monarchy represents an unbroken, legitimate bloodline. Meghan's decision to keep Lilibet's surrogacy a secret from the palace has raised doubts about whether that bloodline is as transparent as it should be. The palace's initial reaction to Meghan's admission has been one of muted silence, but privately, the situation has likely caused a great deal of concern among royal advisors. The monarchy relies on a sense of stability and tradition, and the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth, along with Meghan's decision to hide it from the palace, has shaken that foundation. The fact that Meghan and Harry's actions have already led to public questions about the legitimacy of their children highlights just how important the concept of royal bloodlines is to the monarchy's survival. The public's perception of Lilibet's legitimacy will be shaped not only by her parents' actions but also by the way in which the palace handles the situation. If the royal family fails to publicly address the issue of Lilibet's birth, it may send the message that the monarchy is less concerned with maintaining its traditional values than it once was. Conversely, if the palace makes a public statement denouncing the secrecy and reaffirming the importance of royal succession, it could be seen as an attempt to reassert control over the monarchy's legitimacy. The long-term impact of this issue on Lilibet's place in the royal family remains to be seen. As a direct descendant of the royal family, Lilibet holds a place in the line of succession, and her birth is significant in terms of continuity. However, the question of how her legitimacy will be perceived is complex. If Meghan and Harry's actions are seen as an affront to royal tradition, it could affect Lilibet's future role in the monarchy. The public's trust in the monarchy is fragile, and any deviation from the traditional understanding of royal births could undermine that trust. For Lilibet, this could mean that her place in the royal family, while secure in theory, may be questioned by the public for years to come. The royal family's response to the issue of legitimacy will also have a significant impact on Lilibet's future. If the palace continues to distance itself from Meghan and Harry, it could create a situation where Lilibet's legitimacy is constantly questioned, not just by the public, but by the royal family itself. On the other hand, if the family chooses to embrace Lilibet and publicly acknowledge her as a legitimate member of the royal family, it could help restore some of the public trust that has been lost in the wake of this scandal. Ultimately, the issue of royal legitimacy is not just about bloodlines or royal titles. It is about the public's perception of the monarchy and its ability to adapt to changing times. The monarchy has always been a symbol of continuity, but it is increasingly clear that it must evolve in order to maintain its relevance in a modern world. The question of Lilibet's legitimacy may seem like a small issue in the grand scheme of the monarchy, but it is indicative of a larger problem, the struggle between tradition and modernity. Meghan and Harry's decision to step away from royal duties, combined with their actions regarding Lilibet's birth, has opened up a debate about the future of the monarchy and its ability to maintain its legitimacy in the eyes of the public. When Meghan Markle publicly admitted that she had lied to the palace about the birth of her daughter, Lilibet, the world was stunned. It wasn't just the admission of surrogacy that shocked the public. It was the accompanying confession that Meghan and Harry had kept the secret from the royal family, a move that, in royal circles, was seen as a breach of trust. What followed was an apology from Meghan, one that acknowledged her deception but also provided insight into the reasons behind her actions. In her apology, Meghan expressed deep regret for the lie, stating, "I'm sorry I lied." But while the apology was sincere, the question remains, is it enough? For Meghan, the apology was a necessary step toward healing the wounds created by her decision. She admitted that the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth was born out of a desire to protect her family from the constant media scrutiny that had defined her time as a member of the royal family. But despite the empathy many felt for her struggle, the public's reaction was far from unanimous. While some praised Meghan for being honest about her actions, others questioned whether her apology could truly erase the damage caused by the lie, especially in the context of the royal family's deep-rooted traditions of trust and transparency. The timing of Meghan's apology also raised eyebrows. Coming at a time when the media storm surrounding her and Harry had reached new heights, Meghan's words seemed calculated to defuse the growing backlash. But critics argued that her apology was not a genuine attempt to right a wrong, but rather a strategic move to protect her image and reputation. Was Meghan truly remorseful for her actions? Or was this just another public relations move designed to mitigate the fallout from the controversy? The public was divided, with some seeing her apology as an honest reflection of the challenges she had faced, while others viewed it as an attempt to avoid further scrutiny. What made Meghan's apology even more complicated was the fact that it was not just a personal matter. The royal family, an institution built on the principles of duty, loyalty, and respect for tradition, was directly implicated in the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth. By lying to the palace, Meghan had not only deceived her in-laws but had also violated the unwritten rules that govern the monarchy's conduct. For many within the royal family, Meghan's actions were seen as a betrayal of the trust that the family had placed in her. This breach of trust was compounded by the fact that Meghan and Harry's decision to step back from royal duties had already created a rift between them and the rest of the family. For the royals, this latest revelation was a painful reminder of the complexities of their relationship with Meghan and Harry. Meghan's apology, while sincere, did little to quell the concerns about her relationship with the royal family. While she had expressed regret for the secrecy and the lie, the question remained whether this apology would be enough to repair the damage done. The royal family, which had always been a symbol of unity and tradition, now found itself divided by the actions of one of its members. Meghan's decision to step away from royal life, coupled with her admission of deceit, left the royal family struggling to reconcile their duty to tradition with the reality of the modern world. For Prince Harry, the situation was equally complicated. While he had always defended Meghan and stood by her side, the fallout from her actions placed him in a difficult position. Harry, like Meghan, had faced intense media scrutiny, but the couple's decision to step away from royal duties had left them with limited support from the royal family. Meghan's apology was, in many ways, an attempt to defuse the situation and rebuild trust with her family. But for Harry, the damage had already been done. His relationship with his family, particularly his father and brother, had been strained for years, and Meghan's actions had only deepened the divide. While Harry had always been the more rebellious of the royal siblings, this new scandal put him in an even more precarious position. The royal family's response to Meghan's apology was, predictably, measured. As with many royal controversies, the palace issued a carefully worded statement that emphasized the family's commitment to moving forward while acknowledging the difficulties of the situation. The palace did not publicly condemn Meghan's actions, but they also did not offer a public endorsement of her apology. This silence from the palace left many wondering what the future held for Meghan and Harry within the royal fold. Would they ever be fully accepted back into the family? Or had the breach of trust caused by their actions been too great to overcome? The apology also raised questions about Meghan's role within the royal family moving forward. After her departure from royal life, Meghan and Harry had made it clear that they were no longer bound by the traditional expectations of the monarchy. Their decision to leave their royal duties behind was seen as a challenge to the institution, and their actions in the years since had only served to further distance them from the family. The lie about Lilibet's birth, and Meghan's subsequent apology only added to the complexity of their situation. While Meghan and Harry had sought to build their own lives outside of the monarchy's constraints, their connection to the royal family was still deeply intertwined with their public image. For the public, Meghan's apology was a moment of reckoning. It was a rare glimpse into the personal struggles that had shaped her decisions, but it also left many wondering whether her actions were truly as innocent as they appeared. The monarchy, despite its image of grace and decorum, has always been an institution that is subject to public opinion. And in the case of Meghan, her actions, including the secrecy surrounding Lilibet's birth, have made her one of the most polarizing figures in royal history. The media, which has long been obsessed with her every move, quickly seized upon her apology, turning it into a spectacle that further fueled the controversy. But despite the public backlash, Meghan's apology was an important step in her ongoing quest for personal redemption. Throughout her time in the royal family, Meghan had often been painted as a villain, an outsider who was unwilling to conform to royal expectations. Her apology, while imperfect, allowed her to take ownership of her actions and show a level of vulnerability that had often been missing from her public persona. For many, this moment marked a turning point, one that allowed Meghan to regain some of the public's sympathy and begin to rebuild her relationship with the royal family. However, the lasting impact of Meghan's apology remains to be seen. Can a simple apology truly repair the damage done? Is it enough to regain the public's trust and reintegrate into the royal fold? Meghan's actions have undoubtedly changed the course of her relationship with the royal family, and only time will tell if her apology will be enough to heal the rift that has developed between her and her family. But for Meghan, the apology represents an important first step toward moving forward, reconciling with her past, and perhaps even rebuilding her future, both within and outside the royal family. The royal family's response to the birth of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's children has always been a topic of intense speculation and media interest. From the very beginning, their relationship with the monarchy has been fraught with tension, especially as it relates to their role as parents. Meghan and Harry's decision to raise their children outside of the royal spotlight, away from the public attention that traditionally surrounds royal births and royal family life, has led to questions about how their children, particularly Archie and Lilibet, will be accepted within the royal family and the broader public sphere. The birth of Archie, the couple's first child, in 2019 marked the beginning of a new chapter in the royal family's history. Meghan and Harry's decision to keep Archie's birth relatively private was met with mixed reactions. While some supporters of the couple applauded their desire for privacy, others felt that their position within the royal family, as senior members, required them to adhere to certain expectations. The palace, which had long held a firm grip on royal traditions and the public's expectations of royal life, was initially taken aback by Meghan and Harry's decision to break from tradition and do things their own way. As the couple's relationship with the royal family became increasingly strained, the issue of their children's status within the monarchy became more pronounced. The question of whether Archie and Lilibet would receive official royal titles and how they would be perceived by the British public was a topic that lingered in the background throughout Meghan and Harry's departure from royal duties. While the royal family had always been quick to celebrate royal births with public announcements and photo calls, Meghan and Harry's approach was radically different. They sought to control their children's narrative and protect them from the intense media scrutiny that had already marked their own lives. This desire for privacy, however, came with its own set of challenges. As Meghan and Harry stepped away from their royal duties and moved to the United States, the relationship between the couple and the rest of the royal family grew more distant. The media, which had already been eager to capture every moment of Meghan and Harry's lives, now focused on the couple's decision to raise their children away from the royal spotlight. The palace, which had always expected royal children to be born into the public eye, was now faced with the reality that Meghan and Harry were creating a new kind of royal family, one that did not adhere to the same traditional expectations. The birth of Lilibet in 2021 added another layer of complexity to the royal family's response to Meghan and Harry's children. Lilibet's arrival, which was similarly kept out of the public eye at first, further solidified Meghan and Harry's desire to protect their family from the press and the public. But as Lilibet grew older, the question of her place within the royal family became even more important. Would she be given a title? Would she one day have a public role within the monarchy? These questions were compounded by the ongoing tensions between Meghan, Harry, and the royal family, and it was unclear how the palace would respond to the growing distance between them. In the past, the royal family had always made clear that royal titles were not just a matter of privilege. They were a symbol of the family's public duty. The titles given to royal children were not only a recognition of their place in the line of succession, but also a means of establishing their roles within the broader framework of the monarchy. For Meghan and Harry, however, the issue of titles for their children was far more complicated. Their decision to step away from royal life and live independently had already placed them outside of the traditional royal system, and the question of whether their children would receive official royal titles was an ongoing source of tension. When Meghan and Harry's second child, Lilibet, was born, the palace was faced with another challenge: the couple's refusal to conform to traditional expectations. While some members of the royal family privately expressed support for Meghan and Harry's desire to raise their children outside of the public eye, others were more critical of their decision to distance themselves from the monarchy. The issue of royal titles was particularly contentious, with some insiders arguing that, by stepping away from their royal duties, Meghan and Harry had forfeited the right to pass on official titles to their children. But despite the ongoing tensions and public scrutiny, the royal family was faced with the reality that Meghan and Harry's children were part of the royal bloodline, and their position in the family could not be easily ignored. The royal family had always been quick to embrace new generations, particularly when it came to royal children, but Meghan and Harry's decision to live their lives outside of the palace's control complicated that relationship. For the palace, this was a delicate issue, one that required balancing tradition with the new, modern reality of the royal family. The public's response to Meghan and Harry's children has been equally divided. While some see Archie and Lilibet as legitimate members of the royal family who deserve to be treated with the same respect as any other royal child, others view their parents' departure from royal life as a betrayal of the family's values. The media, ever quick to capitalize on royal drama, has played a central role in shaping public opinion about the couple's children. The media has often painted Archie and Lilibet as pawns in the larger royal drama, framing them as symbols of the rift between Meghan, Harry, and the royal family. This narrative has been fueled by ongoing rumors, speculations, and sensationalized stories about their status within the monarchy. Yet, despite the media's focus on their royal status, Meghan and Harry have consistently maintained that their children's privacy is paramount. They have made it clear that they do not want their children to be thrust into the limelight the way they were, and that their family's well-being comes before any public role they might have within the royal family. Meghan has repeatedly stated that she wants her children to grow up in a safe and loving environment, free from the intense scrutiny that has defined her own life. The royal family, for its part, has been less vocal about its stance on Meghan and Harry's children. While there have been public statements made about the couple's decision to step back from royal duties, the palace has been cautious when it comes to making any declarations about the future of Archie and Lilibet. Behind closed doors, it is likely that there are ongoing discussions about the children's roles within the royal family, but for now, the palace has chosen to keep those discussions private. As the debate over Meghan and Harry's children continues to unfold, it is clear that the future of the royal family will be shaped, in part, by how the next generation is raised. The question of how Archie and Lilibet will be integrated into the royal fold, if at all, is one that will continue to haunt the royal family for years to come. Will they be given the titles and public roles that come with being part of the royal bloodline? Or will Meghan and Harry continue to raise their children away from the spotlight, making their own way in the world? One thing is certain. The royal family's response to Meghan and Harry's children will play a crucial role in determining the future of the monarchy. As the next generation of royals, Archie and Lilibet are both a symbol of the monarchy's enduring legacy and a reflection of its evolution in the modern age. The royal family's ability to navigate this complex situation will have far-reaching implications for how the public views the institution and its future role in British society.